What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. This one is from Nomad Capitalist. Why living in Asia is better than Australia. I was attracted to this one because I've been living in Southeast Asia for the last few years, having grown up in Australia, originally from the UK, moved to Australia at the age of 10. So grew up in Australia, spent my high school years there, went to university, worked there, etc., etc. This topic is very close to my heart. I personally feel that there's a lot more freedom in Southeast Asia than in Australia. Now, a lot of people might take offense to that and say, how dare you? But, you know, I could make a whole video on it, and that's not the point of this particular video. I want to see what Andrew Henderson has to say. But in my experience, in my opinion, living in Southeast Asia is just a much better quality of life if you can make money online. Okay, obviously, if you just have a normal job, it's a very difficult place. If you're just going to have a normal 9-to-5 job, you're going to want to work in Australia. However, there's a cost of living crisis and everything. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on. Let's see what Andrew Henderson has to say. This one's got 131,000 views 2 weeks ago. A lot of comments. We'll see maybe if we can go through some of these comments. Let's see what he's got to say.
The mainstream press says there's a lot to love about Australia. And there is a lot to love if you love high taxes, a dramatic reduction in your personal freedoms, and yes, even now cooling housing prices. I've told you for years, whether you're Australian or from any other legacy brand country, you will likely have a better quality of life living in an Asian country that you never thought could be better. Today, I'm showing you actual data and telling you how my favorite places in Asia stack up to Australia. Speaking of Australia, they say the country has sunny skies, excellent food, and an abundance of beaches, even if it's also home to some of the world's deadliest creatures. And a lot of places in the world, including, if you're Australian, not so far away in many places in Asia. Oh, and minus the critters. I'm looking at a report from the Economist magazine. Their intelligence unit every year puts out a list of the most livable places in the world. We've talked about this for years. The number one winner is some very western city where the authors are enamored by the quality of the subway system, and that's why it ranks very highly. But today I'm going to talk to successful people. You're the person who lives in Australia. You're paying a lot of money in taxes. It's harder than ever to run a business. Your freedoms are being taken away. You've seen that in recent years. And you're saying to yourself, why is this worth it? But someone in Australia tells you, hey, it doesn't get any better than this. Everyone's coming here after all, right? Well, no, because Nomad Capitalist helps a lot of our clients, including Australians, move to countries that are up and coming. The places that maybe you didn't think had a better lifestyle, but I'm going to dig through the Economist's data and show you how you can use this to actually find a place to go. So the Economist ranks cities on a 1 to 100 scale. Melbourne and Sydney are around a 96, 97. Elsewhere in Asia, Osaka, Tokyo, home to some of the greatest food in Asia, scored at a 96. Now, you're probably not going to move to Japan. The language barrier is an issue. The culture barrier for some people will be an issue. They're opening up immigration now, but historically it wasn't really open to immigration, and the taxes are really no better than what you'd deal with in Australia. But let's dig deeper. There are nice things in places all around Asia that if you have money, you can be perfectly safe, you can be perfectly happy, you can be more free, and yes, you're not only going to pay less in terms of cost of living, you're going to pay a heck of a lot less in taxes. I've tried to show you this with our Live Like a King series, where we take you to places all around the world that you might have looked down on before and showed you can be safe, you can have a great life. And so if you are a high earner, if you're a high net worth individual, do not fall for the trap. People say if you want to move and stop paying 40-some% taxes, just move to Somalia. Now, let's look at some of the underperformers within the Asian region. Least livable, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, they scored 54.7. Let's call it 55. So obviously substantially less than Melbourne, Sydney, Osaka, and most other city in the Asia and Australia region. I have investments in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. I've been going there for a dozen years. I like the place. I know a few people who are Westerners who live there, and they enjoy it. It takes a certain kind of person to live there and enjoy it. If I had to live there, I think I could. I would rather live in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in Cambodia for a few months. It's a little bit underdeveloped for me personally, but I could go there for a few months. But there's other choices. I mean, currently I'm in Vietnam, and I think Vietnam is it's such a great place. But I don't want to go on about Vietnam because there's too many people coming here. I want to keep it a secret. Go to Thailand, okay, guys? Malaysia also, what Andrew's going to talk about next is a real great place. I mean, it's very developed compared to Cambodia.
As I do, that has a few more creature comforts, but if I had to, I could live in Phnom Penh. But I get it. You don't want to move somewhere just because, hey, you have to. But what my point is, if that's the worst that Asia has to offer, I get why somebody coming in from scratch might be like, oh no, Cambodia. If I had to spend time there, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The cities that rank even lower, like Dhaka and Karachi, yeah, I can understand people are not going to want to move there. But those are the bottom 5, basically. So if Phnom Penh is in the bottom 5, and you could live there, let's dig into the places that rank much more highly. We'll start with Singapore. They're still ranked above 90 on the list. So I told you Melbourne and Sydney, they're in the high 90s. Singapore is still in the 90s. Pretty negligible difference. What do you get in Singapore? Much more tax-friendly system. They have what's called a territorial tax system. There's always a little bit of nuance to this, which you have to evaluate. We help our clients figure that out at nomadcapitalist.com/apply. How do you move to a place like Singapore and get the maximum benefit? But Singapore is pretty much on par with those places. It's a lot cleaner in some cases than where you're coming from. It's more orderly, and you can potentially pay, in some cases, 0 tax, particularly if you have capital gains, dividends, those kind of income sources, depending.
I've got to be honest, I just came from Singapore. I went to a couple of trade shows. I was there for a few days. Singapore reminds me a lot like Australia. Just the way that things are set up and the streets are clean and things like that. Obviously, it's a totally different culture and everything, but just the way things are there and the way things look, to me, it seems like it was very familiar for me. So if you haven't been to Singapore, go check it out. Beautiful place, great country. If you want to work there and get a job, Singapore is a great place to have a job. If you want to have a business, Singapore is a great place to do business. So yeah, I mean, if you're comparing Singapore to Cambodia, 2 completely different places.
Depending on where they're from. But even if you run a business, you can move your business out of Australia or out of the high tax country you're living in now, move it to some neutral and tax neutral third country, and then live in Singapore, and potentially your taxes could be pretty darn low. So you're getting basically the same quality of life for a much, much, much lower tax rate. Living, sure, living in Singapore is expensive. Buying property there is very expensive. Renting property is expensive. Eating and day-to-day life, I would say, is probably cheaper than some of the big English-speaking countries.
The food in Singapore is great, by the way. If you go to Singapore, go to the hawkers, oh my God, you'll just be amazed.
Here's the biggest problem. You're too late. Unless you have millions and millions and sometimes even many, many millions to invest, Singapore is probably not going to let you in. The time to get citizenship in Singapore is pretty much over. If you want to start a business there, then you can perhaps get an entrepreneurship residence permit, but then you are going to be paying their corporate tax. So Singapore is less accessible, and when people look at what's required, even some of our centimillionaire clients have said, you know what, let me put my money in Singapore, but I'm not going to live there. But that is an option at the top levels that compares very favorably to, let's say, a city in Australia. Between 80 and 90, which the Economist Intelligence Unit says is still basically the excellent level. From 80 to 100 is still kind of, it's in one level. Between 80 and 90, Taipei and Taichung in Taiwan. A lot of people may not want to go there for geopolitical reasons. I think it's a nice place to live. Probably not a place that most people are going to want to go. Same with Seoul, also scored very high. I like Taipei, I like Seoul, not places I would live. We have had some clients and guests who have lived there before, but it's not a common place we help people go.
Yeah, so when it comes to Taiwan, it's a great place to visit, but I'm not sure if it's somewhere that you would want to go long term, just because of the issues with China and the potential for reunification and things like that. There might be a major war there, who knows. Go check it out, enjoy it, food is great, but I don't think it's somewhere that you would want to actually live if you had your pick of the bunch. Seoul, I've not been there. I plan to be going there in June or July for a few shows and conferences. From what I hear with Korea is that it's just a real tough life. It's just a real tough life over there for many Koreans, and I think if you go there, it'll be difficult for you not only to integrate with the Korean way of life and the Korean populace, but it will be very difficult for you to, in turn do business there as well. So although both of those places are good places to visit, I'm not sure if they would be places that you would actually want to live in.
Oh, The more tax-friendly one on this list, between 80 and 90 points, is Hong Kong. Again, some people have a certain aversion to that. I have plenty of Western friends who live in Hong Kong, and they love it, and they feel perfectly comfortable there. And they have a pretty similar tax policy to what Singapore does. If your company's incorporated there, you're going to pay a very reasonable rate of tax on that business. And if that's the way you're immigrating there, you're going to have tax rates in the teens. But of course, you could also go further afield in Asia. Abu Dhabi and Dubai are still part of Asia, and they ranked in that upper tier in the 80s. And so you could start your company there. You're looking at about 9% tax for most companies if you're going to live in the UAE. And so those are the top places in Asia. Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. You're going to pay zero tax in some cases or very reasonable rates of tax in other cases. All potential substitutes for Australia, all places served nonstop by Australia. And obviously these places are not just for Australians, but they're closer to home for Australians. Now, let's go to the next level, between 70 and 80 points. This is not the absolute best in living, but it's, hey, everyday living's pretty good. Occasionally a little snag might come up. That's basically how they describe it. This is where you get places like Kuala Lumpur, followed very closely by Penang. You will see in the near future our Live Like a King episode where we're showing luxury living in Penang, Malaysia. A lot of Australians in particular, when we talk to them about Malaysia's tax friendliness for foreigners, have preferred to move to Penang because Australians often live by the sea. They want the sea. Kuala Lumpur is a drive to the sea, whereas Penang is on the sea. And so we've seen our Australian clients historically gravitate towards Penang. You will see that Live Like a King coming up. So I've been a fan of Malaysia. We host Nomad Capitalist Live, our 4-day annual event there. I have a home. I spend time there. Similar situation to Hong Kong and Singapore. You can set up your company in Labuan, Malaysia's tax haven. They've streamlined those rules. It's 3% tax. You can put your company somewhere else and pay no tax. And so theoretically, you can live very, very, very tax-friendly in Malaysia. The standard of living, sure, it is not quite Singapore. People don't dress up quite as much. It's a bit more casual. What I think you get, and what I think is important to a successful person, is you get a little bit high level of personal freedom. It's a bit more laissez-faire. It's a bit more relaxed. You go to Singapore, you can't sip your bottle of water on the subway, on the metro. You go to Malaysia, it is just a bit more, people are, they leave you be. And
yeah, that's true. Singapore is a little bit more strict compared to most of the other Southeast Asian countries, at least. Malaysia is a really good alternative. I've been there heaps of times. I haven't been to Penang for a long time, actually. I'll have to put it on my list. But Kuala Lumpur, great place. You know, it's chilled, good personal freedoms when compared to, for example, like Singapore, as Andrew's saying. And you know, it has the like the rough and tumble kind of area, so you get like the character of the place, but it's also got the luxury living side of things, and you get to do both. And the infrastructure is good there as well as the internet. So if you've got an online business or something, you know, the tax rate in Malaysia is very attractive.
So if you're someone who wants a bit more of an organic lifestyle, you're going to get it there. And so sure, might one of the sidewalk tiles be, you know, mismatched, or might there be some other little things? Sure. You know, in a place like the Gulf in particular, and Singapore as well, it's pretty pristine. Malaysia.
Yeah, nowhere's perfect, by the way, guys. I've been all around the world. You're never going to find a perfect place. You're just going to find what's relevant or useful to you now at this stage in your life. If you're looking to move now, at least, look at what you need right now, and maybe that will change in the next 5 or 10 years, and then you can move somewhere else if need be, you know? Lots of things can happen in the world that will, you know, encourage you to move somewhere else, or just general changes can happen in a country.
Malaysia is, you know, half a level down from that. And yet, if you are a successful person, you're going to live in a nice neighborhood. You're going to perhaps buy a nice car. You can actually own property freehold, including the land, in Malaysia, which is very rare in Asia.
That's pretty good. Most Asian countries don't allow you to own the land. So we'll skip across here. We'll talk about, or we'll listen to what he has to say about Malaysia's healthcare versus Australia. I think that's an important thing to talk about.
Malaysia, I was just at Prince Court Medical Center. 7 different people came up to me and said, hey, thanks for turning us on to this medical center. They're paying probably 10 cents the dollar. And I understand in Australia you have free health care, but they're paying 10 cents the dollar what you pay like in the United States. And by the way, for elective care, it's much, much, much cheaper as well. People are getting good quality health care there. And so sure, it's not free in Malaysia. My health insurance, that's pretty all-encompassing, costs like $500 or $600 a year. I don't even bother using it because I just go and I self-pay and it's so affordable. So again, if you don't have any money left at the end of the month, I understand why living in Australia might be better because, hey, we take care of your health care. If you're paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in taxes every year, yeah, you're not getting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in health care ever in your life, and certainly not most likely in 1 year. You can pay $500 for that health insurance policy. You can pay $300 for a checkup at Prince Court. The mechanics shift. And by the way, you've been paying that money for long enough. You've paid them potentially millions of dollars in taxes. When is it enough for what they've given you? You have the right to opt out. So stability, healthcare, culture, and the environment, that's up for grabs. And I would argue, by the way, you like museums? Take a couple holidays a year. Take all the money you save, take holidays. You don't need to live in Paris to go to the Louvre. How often does the average Parisian go to the Louvre?
Interesting stuff, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about some of these opinions, some of these suggestions. A lot of comments. Let's go through and see what they've got to say. All right. Haven't been on channel after your mum been out living my life. Don't want to pass on to anyone perhaps needs the topic of living overseas. Even though Andrew targets the entrepreneur set, the principles he espouses can do and work across the world spectrum. Yeah, I agree, guys. If you're familiar with Nomad Capitalist, you don't have to be a millionaire to do some of the things that he's doing. I mean, I've been living in Southeast Asia for the last 5-6 years. You just have to have an online business or some kind of income stream in your main country that allows you to travel so that you don't have to be there, right? Most of the time, an online business is the best way to do it. Australia's deadliest creatures are politicians. I like that one. That gave me a giggle. It astonishes me how butthurt a lot of Australians get if you dare question the rhetoric that Australia is the best place in the world. Guys, I agree with this comment so much. I've spoken about this with my friends over the years. Australians are so like nationalists, really, and very proud of their country, and that's fine, rightfully so. But and I've had friends who are like this, and they get very offended when I talk about Asia and things being, certain things being better in a different place. And it's like, no, Australia is the best place in the world. It's almost like a brainwashed consciousness, Yeah, we readily accuse the Americans of being brainwashed. Yeah, Australia was the best place in the world up to about the year 2000, give or take. I mean, look, it's still a great place, but I can never forgive the government what they did to us during the pandemic and the lockdowns and all the things I saw on the news and the media and all the crap that we had to just put up with, guys. I mean, if you're still living in Australia and you just don't have just like some kind of hate for the Australian government and, the policies that were enacted around that time, I just don't, I don't know who you are. I really don't know. I'm an Aussie that spent the last few months in Thailand. I can say honestly that Australia as a whole. Thailand is a very free place. I do love it. I love my friends and family, but do not miss the rest of the morons that have ruined what was once a fantastic country. Funny thing is, they're importing a lot more morons as well. They're not, when I first immigrated to Australia, my family could only immigrate to Australia by actually providing something to the country. So my dad had to buy businesses and make a profit and demonstrate that he was doing good for the country. It seems that if you were from some other random country, you can just come in for no reason without actually providing to Australia, which I just find crazy. They make it very difficult for certain people to immigrate and live in the country, and easier for others. I've got an uncle who was never able to naturalize in Australia, and he's from the UK, of course, and he had a sports business, so he was selling like sports merch and t-shirts and sporting equipment and stuff, and he couldn't meet the requirements of getting the points in order to get the citizenship, but they'll just hand it out. The government will just hand it out to people that don't even really truly integrate with the country, who don't even care whether or not they're in Australia or America or the UK or Canada. Like, they're just like happy to be anywhere, and they'll never integrate to any of these places. I think it's just, it's a real shame what's going on. Australia does not have free healthcare. This is a myth perpetuated decades ago. Today we pay out of pocket all the time. Extremely rare to find any bulk billing these days. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's really hard to find the bulk billing. I was doing that back when I was living in Australia. I only heard about it actually as an adult. I didn't even know about bulk billing when I was younger. I guess that's because my parents take care of their healthcare at that time. But yeah, when I found bulk billing, I realized that it's very difficult to find the place in the first place. And from memory, when I'm paying for healthcare over in Australia, it's like there is some kind of payment that you put down as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Any Aussies in here that know better, let me know in the comments below if you're agreeing with anything I say, or if you disagree. Also in the comments, let me know, correct what I'm saying, or if you've got something to say to any of these people, let me know, okay? I relocated from Australia to Mexico, and now I export Mexican products to Australia, while also building beach houses for European and American clients. This sounds like the great life, man. Sounds like a great life. You're exporting from Mexico to Australia and you're building real estate. I love it. Life here is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I've not been to Mexico. I think it's a bit dangerous from what I hear, but I could be really naive about it. Life here is fantastic. The media tends to exaggerate the issues in remote areas, but overall it's a wonderful place to live. I have no regrets about my decision. Yeah, if you want to live all the way in Latin America, Mexico is somewhere that a lot of people go. Moving from Australia to Malaysia in a few days. Can't wait. Australia's gone to crap, especially since about 2000, and it is getting worse. The government is useless, and the economy is dominated by oligopolies that don't compete, rip you off. Guys, let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with the comments? Do you agree with anything I've said? Do you agree with Andrew Henderson, or do you totally disagree? Let me know in the comments, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.